Welcome to the Jerseys and Dresses podcast. Today we're talking sports, style, and the stories behind the players that are our hometown heroes. From Hilton Head Island to one of the biggest programs in college football, he was named South Carolina Mr. Football in 2021, the top high school player in the entire state. Right here on Hilton Head, going on to become a standout linebacker at Notre Dame. And we get to talk to his mama today, Chanta Ellison. You have raised a superstar.
Yes. Yes.
How is that raising an athlete at that level? When he was little and he played pee-wee football for the Gators, was there a time when you were like, this boy's got something different. He's special.
I don't know that I recognized it when he was in Pee Wee, but I did know that there was something different about him because what most people don't know, Jaylen did not start out on the Pee Wee level, I think, which is the first level. He even as a 6-year-old, he played with the 8-year-olds. And at the advice of one of the coaches, say, you know what, you might need to play him up. And I played him up. And he didn't really get a whole lot of playing time, and he played nose guard. And at the time, I didn't really know what a nose guard was, let alone I was like, nose guard, they don't even have a position like that. And I can remember in particular one game we were in Ridgeland, South Carolina, and it was a tough game. It was a tough game, and they knew it was going to be a tough game. Well, the rules state that he was supposed to play at least 2 downs in the game, and they were abiding by the rules, but they decided that maybe this game was not a game he needed to be in. And I can remember towards the end of the game, him being on the sidelines and him looking up with tears in his eyes because he wanted to play. And I knew then that no matter what, it he didn't have any fear in his heart because these kids were bigger or these kids were rougher. He just wanted to play football. He just wanted to play football. And as a result, I did, approach the coaches after the game, and I said, the rules state that he's supposed to play 2 downs. Well, we decided as a coach, well, that was something that y'all maybe should have decided to talk to us about, and they didn't. But my one rule was there was no crying in football. So I told him, I looked down at him and said, drop those tears. There's no crying in football. Absolutely none. So whatever it is, we'll deal with it and we'll move on. And we did. And it just made him stronger as a player, stronger as a person, and, made him understand that sometimes patience is a virtue.
Patience is a virtue.
Mm-hmm.
So when did he, in your eyes, become that standout player? Was it middle school? Was it at high school? Like, is there a time where you thought this young athlete really is going places?
I'm going to tell you when it really hit me. Maybe that'll help. I don't know that because, Jaylen came up with a bunch of boys, and all of them I thought were outstanding players and great players. And I thought that their whole career, because, they had started at Pee Wee at 6. He
Right.
didn't play with the 6-year-old, but all of them played at 6. And so, I thought all of them were great. And it was a lot of great kids came out of that class. But I'm going to tell you, we were at a camp. It was probably his junior year. And I had sent him with his goddad to this camp because I was unable to go, and it was in Atlanta, and he needed to be there, because Coach Payne told us this, it's a great camp. He got an invite, and he went to this camp. Well, at this camp, he won the top award. Wow. And I can remember his goddad calling me and saying, and he probably wasn't paying much attention because, he was there because it was his, duty. And I said, okay, take him to this camp. It was hot. He was sitting in the stands. But he said all he could hear all around him was these murmurs about this kid on the field and this kid, did you see that play? Did you see this? Did you see that? So he said he kind of started to pay attention, and then he realized that they were talking about Jaylen. And he said, so, he got up and he moved a little closer because he thought maybe I needed to pay some more attention. And he said, Jaylen was killing it in the drills. He was killing it, in everything. And then he said, at the end of it, when they'll announce the MVP of the tournament of the club that he went to, that they said, he won. And he was like, you know, wow. He was like, he is special. So this, I think that was a turning point for me, and that was one. And I'll tell you the other thing is I went and watched the North and South game where Georgia played South Carolina. It was in Savannah, and it was just, a local friendly game where they
Mm-hmm.
let most of the outstanding seniors come. Honestly, when I saw the way the other kids, were playing, I said, my boy would have been all over that field. My boy would have been here, there, everywhere, and that's when I really realized that you can't teach what he have.
You can't.
You can't teach what he have.
And he's very smart.
Right.
He has it on the field and the brains.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, and that I think is an important combination. You can be the strongest athlete, but unless you're really, really smart and can put it all together, so
Well, my thing to that is I would tell parents always listen to your children, because he did come to me. I don't know, somewhere doing Pee Wee League, somewhere doing Gator time, and he said, Mama, and he was naming all his friends, and he said, he's the fast one, Mama, I'm the strong one, and Mama, he's the one we go to for this, and he said, and then he named one of his players, and I'm not gonna name his name, but he said, Mama, he's the smart one. He's the one that he puts it all together, and he knows the plays, and he this and that and the other. And so I looked at him and I said, well, you don't think that you're the smart one? He says, no, Mama, I'm the strong one. And I said, well, what do you do to become the smart one? I said, that's what we need to work on, so that you can become the smart one and the strong one. So I just say that to tell parents that you listen to your kids, you feed off of them, and you run with it from there. But I just didn't want him to believe that he wasn't one of the smart ones as well as one of the strong ones. So and he decided that he was going to be a quarterback, not to his mama liking, because I told him, absolutely, we're not quarterbacking that Pee Wee. They don't block. We're not quarterbacking. And I can remember we went to a camp, and I put him in running back camp, because that's what he was a running back, the strong running back.
mm-hmm.
And I'm all over the camp thinking that these people have lost my kid, because I'm at the running back camp and I can't find him, and I'm looking everywhere. And a parent or someone must be said, I think your kid is over there on that other side. Well, he had reclassified himself and put himself in the quarterback camp. And that's where he was. That's where he was. So, and that's kind of how it was with Jaylen. If he put his mind to it, he was going to do it, and that was it. So,
Well, you yourself were an athlete.
yeah, I was. So.
How did you take your own experience as an athlete and incorporate some of that into raising your children?
Well, I can't take credit for that. I'll have to give credit where it's due, and that was my mom. My mom, was a single mother until she, married my stepfather, which was probably, we would think, middle school by the time she married him. But, we're from Texas originally, and, in Texas, sports are huge.
Yes.
I can remember my mom coached base softball. She was the commissioner of the softball league. If we were somewhere, she was somewhere. I can remember when we were in middle school, me and my brother were a grade apart, and if I played home, he played away. So when I played, we got in the car and we drove to wherever he was at, and so she could watch him play as well. And so I have to give credit where credit is due, because that was what I was taught. My mom was an athlete as well. A lot of people don't know my mom was 6'1".
Okay.
My grandmother was 6'2". I had a 6'6" uncle and a 6'5" uncle. So they all played sports. So I have to give credit where credit is due. And it was instilled in me to always be there, to be present. My mom didn't miss a softball game. She didn't miss a volleyball game. She didn't miss a basketball game. So it was instilled in me, but I took it one step farther. And what I told my kids is, if you have an interest in it, we going all out. We're going all out. Whatever it is I need to do. A lot of people don't know that Jaylen made the All-Star South Carolina team when he was at that same quarterback camp.
Mm-hmm.
Was about 9 or 10. Every Saturday and Sunday, I had to get up and drive him to Columbia to go practice. And I got up Saturday morning and I drove him when we came home because I was a single mother.
Got chills.
We couldn't afford to stay the night, so I had to drive there and drive back. And we did it every Saturday and we did it every Sunday. And we did this for weeks before finally he looked at me and he said, "Mama, we don't need to do this anymore." And I said, "Well, are you sure?" And he said, "Yeah, Mama, this is too much." He said, "Every Saturday and Sunday, this is our whole day. We have to go up there, we drive." And I said, "Well, Jaylen, because I never let them quit what they started." And I said, "Well, Jaylen, we don't quit what we start." He said, "Mama, it's not quitting what we start. This is just too much. This is too much." So we did not further in that particular endeavor, and it was costly, and they were gonna go on and play other states. So, but we thanked them for the opportunity, and I made him go thank them for the opportunity, and I made them understand why we had decided that we weren't gonna go on and compete, because this was taking up most of our summer. And I promise you, it was every Saturday and Sunday we drove to Columbia, which, you do what you have to for your kids.
You do.
You do what you have to for your kids. And if that's what he said he wanted to do, then that's what I was committed to doing. So,
Well, one of the benefactors of Jerseys and Dresses Tailgate Fundraiser is the All American Football Camp that is run through the Island Rec Center with Coach Payne and Coach Beach. And Jaylen attended that camp, and now he comes back and he coaches that camp. And you volunteer there. Miss Coach Beach was telling me you get in the tent, you're helping volunteer. How has that camp, helped the community of young football players?
That's funny that you asked, because I just had a guy come in my office and he said, "What's the Notre Dame thing that you have going on in your office at work?" And I said, "Well, my son plays for Notre Dame." "Is your son Jaylen Sneed?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And then, but you know what? Not only that, I took the step further and I said, "Come into my office. Let me show you something." Because he was, somebody that owned a company and could have, be a benefactor towards All-American Camp. And I showed him all the posters from the 4 years. I said, "Now, this is a camp that my kid started at. This is a camp that he attended when he was younger." And I say, now he's back as a camp counselor. And not only that, he recruits other players to come to this camp. And they can always use sponsors. And this money, you just don't know. My motto is, if you help one kid, then that's enough. You understand what I'm saying? So if there's 5 kids that come out of this camp that become successful, whether they're lawyers, doctors, or whether they go on to play sports, then you did enough. And this gives these kids this opportunity to go to a camp, see what it's like, and then maybe be able to broaden your horizon, and for parents to really go and pay for a big camp for them to be in. So that All-American Camp is everything to Jaylen, and he gets great pleasure. He just thinks the kids are so funny, because one kid asked, "Well, how much money do you make?" "Do you play for the Miami Dolphins?" And Jaylen said no, and he was like, so, it's, and Jaylen, he finds that so funny. He say, "Mom, those kids ask the craziest questions."
Kids do ask the craziest
and
questions.
And I said, but you were like that too when you were little. So that's why that camp is so special.
It's a special one. It certainly is. So now back to mama stuff.
Okay.
How in the world do you fuel a growing boy that plays as much football as your son did when they're going through that growth spurt? Like, how much does he eat?
And let me tell you something. The funny thing is, Jaylen's allergic to everything.
Oh, no.
He's allergic to peanuts. He's allergic to shellfish. He's allergic to grass. He's allergic to everything. So it was, and especially when it was time to pack on pounds.
Right.
It was because, most people fix kids peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. There was
Not
no
you.
fixing. But you know what I did? I kept snacks in my car. My every kid always knew they could come to the trunk of my car because they knew I had snacks. I had some type of snacks. I had juice boxes. I had some, I had something in there. So, so that was one of the things. And the other thing is, Jaylen was not, he was not big on snacks, unless it was like in between meals.
Mm-hmm.
But I can remember one day I fixed them a sandwich, and it, when time changes and it'll get dark, soon. And I fixed them a sandwich. It's probably about 6 o'clock, but it wasn't dark. And so, I figured that was dinner. Sandwich, chips, that was it. That's all we got, guys, for the day. And Jaylen came and he said, Mama, what time is dinner? And I said, you ate dinner. He said, Mama, dinner is chicken and rice. That was not dinner. That was a sandwich. So, so cooking hearty meals. And the other thing people don't understand is I raised my nephew along with my kids. So my nephew wrestled.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I had two kids playing basketball and a nephew that wrestled. So Mondays and Wednesdays he was in the gym. Tuesdays and Thursdays, Jaylen, I think, was in the gym. And Tuesdays and Friday, China was in the gym. So every day of the week, we probably was in the gym. So there was a lot of crock pot cooking.
Okay.
There was a lot of and I still do it. I meal prep on Sunday. So if I cooked on Sunday, I cooked 3 or 4 meals so that I can make sure to come home and be able to warm up something hot. I just didn't want them, to have McDonald's and burgers, stuff that wasn't good for them. So, but yeah, Jaylen definitely he was a chicken and rice eater. He was a mama. No, sandwich is not food. So,
Well, thank you very much. We're so excited. So, as a benefactor, we offer support them and offer scholarships. We add to their scholarship fund.
okay.
And the camp is on May 8th through 10th, and registration opens soon. So you can stick around and look at Jerseys and Dresses website. You can follow the Island Rec Center, and as soon as that camp opens for registration, it is a huge part of the football community on our island. And Miss Chante, thank you so much for coming out here and talking to us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And go register. Go register. Go get your kids out there.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you again for your time. I'm super grateful you came out here.
Thank you.